Hi everyone, Ali here. Well, today I thought I'd do a process video on vintage ATC cards. So last weekend I made these cards up and I had such a great time and so much fun that I thought I'd make a process video for you today. So I've got this vintage photos here I've had in my stash for ages, along with some vintage paper. So I'm going to use some Semco paint. So these are vintage colours that I'm going to use. Also I've got some hand printed tissue paper and an old cereal box. So firstly what I do is get a fine sandpaper and just rub over the shiny side. Then I gesso over this. So I've prepared one earlier. Now this is a 18 centimetre by 9 centimetre one, so I'm ready to go. Before I Mod Podge my tissue paper down, I'm just going to use some of my brown and antique white Semco paint and just paint over. So I'm not being particular putting the brown down. So I want it to be a bit of a vintage look, and a bit of a rustic look also. So just painting all over that, just roughly, and just to give it that look and feel. And once I've done that, then I'll just give it a quick blast with the heat gun just to dry it off. So once I've dried this, I'm going to add some antique linen paint, and I'm just going to apply this with my finger. So I want a bit of a rustic look with the brown background. So I think this adds authenticity to the vintage overall look. So just applying just here and there. So I'm not going to cover the whole card, I'm just going to cover it here and there and just blend it through. And once I've done that, I'm just going to give it a blast with the heat gun. Now I've got some Mod Podge here and I'm going to apply my tissue paper. So I'm going to do a half and half. So I've got a stamped postal tissue paper that I've got a background stamp of this. And I'm not sure what the name of it is, I'm sorry. So I do a lot of stamping tissue paper. I love this technique. So it just saves me a bit of money as well using this. So just applying all the Mod Podge and just making sure that I'm giving a little bit extra to the corners of the cardstock. So once I've done that, I'm just going to give it a bit of a blast with the heat gun again, just to make sure that it's all dry for my next part. Just double checking on those corners, so as you can see sometimes the corners get missed, so just redoing those corners to make sure they're okay. Just cutting the tissue paper away. Now I keep all these scraps of tissue paper. I've got a little box that I keep all this in, so if I ever want to do a collage and that, so I keep all those little bits. Now as you can see, the paint underneath shows through the tissue paper, and that's what I'm looking for. So I bought this washi tape from AliExpress and received it the other day. So I really love this washi tape. It's a thicker size one, so it's probably 1 inch thick, and it comes in different vintage pictures on it. So I thought this would be good to actually stick on my vintage ATC cards. So I'm just going to randomly cut them in their pictures and just randomly stick them all over the card. So now that's all done, I've got my vintage pages here. Like I said, I've had these forever, so I'm not sure where I've gotten them. But before I stick the vintage pictures down, I'm going to get some metallic gold paint that I've got here, which is from FolkArt. Now I'm just going to put that on my finger as well. I'm just going to randomly just smear that on. So I just want it as a bit of a rustic look all over my page here. And once I've done that and I'm happy with that, I'm just going to just dry it completely with my heat tool. So now that's all dry, I'm going to get one of these pages here and I'm going to rip it and adhere it down with some Mod Podge. So first of all, I'm just going to rip them off. So I want that once again looking for an old rustic antique sort of a look. And when I'm happy with the placement, I'm just going to adhere it down with some Mod Podge again as well. So I'm just sticking all these down and I want them all facing the right way also. I'm just going to give that a bit of a blast with the heat gun again, just to make sure that everything is dry. Now, as you can see, that's all stuck down nicely, and I use a gloss Mod Podge, which I like. So I know I'm going to use those photos as well, so just making sure that's what I do want to use, so just double checking. So I'm going to cut my photos apart. So once they're all apart, then I can see how they're going to appear on my page. Now this is where I actually made a bit of a mistake. I thought I was going to get 4 ATC cards, but I'm going to do 3 because I did the card the wrong way. I should have done it portrait and not landscape, so my bad. But anyway, the leftover scrap I will use for another project. So when I realised this, I'm going and printing off some little vintage labels that I've got here, and I thought they would be good in the background. So I'm just going to cut them all. So as I said, I've had these vintage things in my scrap box forever, so I don't know where I even got them from. So once they're cut up, and then I will make a place, just place them randomly. So once that's all stuck down, once again, I'm just going to give it a blast with the heat gun. So I've cut up my ATC cards now. So they are 6 centimeters wide, 9 centimeters high. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is in imperial. But now I'm going to use some vintage photo distress ink, and I'm just going to distress all around the edges just to get rid of that white thickness, so it doesn't show, so it looks vintage. So now these photos, I want to distress the edge as well, and these are just paper. So what I'm doing is I've got my fine grit sanding block here, and I'm just sanding the edges just to give it that worn look on each photo. done the distressing on the edges, what I've done is I've got some foam and I've adhered it to the back of each picture. So because I do want this to have a bit of dimension. So I'm just going to get some distressing, once again some vintage photo, and just distress those photo edges as well. So because I want that worn look. So I have some words here on some label paper that I've made up, and I've picked which one I want. So I'm just going to distress it with the vintage photo distressing and just colour that. Then what I'll do is I'll snip them apart, and these words I'll use randomly on the cards. So now I'm going to use some quick dry adhesive glue to glue down my vintage photos onto the cardstock, and I know how I want to place them, so I want to place them on an angle. So once that's done, then I can actually randomly put my words all over. So I picked words that are inspirational. Now I get my Faber-Castell Pitt pen and just lightly, because these aren't covered with any matte medium, just on the edges, just so it just sticks out just ever so lightly. So I'll do this to all 3 cards. So now I've got some peachy ribbon that I've made my own little bows in, and I'm going to attach it once again with the quick dry adhesive just to the corner, just to give it some dimension also. Once again, I'll do that to all 3 ATC cards. Now I like to mount my ATC cards on some coloured stock. So in this I'm going to mount them on some brown cardstock. So I've just got some double-sided adhesive, and I also put some glue down also to make sure that they adhered to the cardstock and not lift. And I just eyeball this on. So when I do cut the mounting cardstock, I always cut it 1/2 centimetre bigger, so that'll give 1/4 centimetre around the edge, just making a nice border. And there you have it. So my ATC cards are completed. If you've enjoyed this process, please give me the thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for up and coming videos, and also please share. I'll see you next time, and happy crafting. See ya!